The content on the Untold Tales channel is protected by copyright. Unauthorized use may result in legal liability. I'd always known that one day everything would collapse. It was inevitable, like death, like retribution for sins. I was not a good person. Never. I didn't have time for that. I was a killer. My name was Vincent Carter, but most people knew me as Vince. Once, that name was whispered with respect and fear in certain circles. I worked where ordinary hitmen couldn't. I was hired when the job had to be done cleanly. No traces, no witnesses, no mistakes. I killed methodically, without emotion. I was a cold instrument in the hands of those who paid the most. The mafia, the cartels, corrupt cops, agencies that didn't officially exist. If someone was on my list, they died. It was as inevitable as the sunrise. My job wasn't just about killing. I was in the business of eliminating problems. When a businessman got in the way of corporation, he disappeared. When a drug lord betrayed his own, he was found with a bullet in his head. When a politician knew too much, he committed suicide. I never asked why they wanted him dead. It didn't matter to me. I was good at what I did. A damn genius. But the best of us don't live long. My past began long before my first kill. I grew up in the slums of Los Angeles, in a neighborhood where cops didn't bother to show up. Or if they did, it was only to collect bodies. My father was a worthless bastard who drank and beat my mother. And when he died of cirrhosis, he couldn't even die with dignity. He just collapsed in a puddle of his own vomit and never got up again. I was 10 years old. I stood there watching as he convulsed. I didn't help. I waited for him to die. My mother didn't last long after that. She worked 3 jobs, but it was never enough. We ate once a day, sometimes less. I learned early on, if you don't take what's yours, you die. I was 12 when I beat someone nearly to death for the first time. The guy was older, maybe 16. He tried to steal my bread. I broke his nose, knocked out his teeth. I kept hitting him until he stopped moving, until his face was a bloody mess. I didn't feel guilt. I felt power. If you're weak, they trample you. If you're strong, you trample others. I got involved with the streets. At first, small jobs. Theft, smuggling, street fights for money. I quickly realized I had a talent. I knew how to be invisible. Cameras didn't catch me. Cops didn't notice me. I was a shadow. At 16, one of the big-time gangsters in Los Angeles took me under his wing, Frank Montello. Frank was old school, tough, calculating. He saw potential in me. You have 2 things the others don't, Vince. What? You're smart. And you have no heart. I didn't argue. They taught me how to shoot, how to fight, how to use a knife in a way that left no screams. I killed my first man when I was 17. He was a scumbag, a rapist Frank wanted gone. I caught him in his car, cut his seatbelt, gagged him, and drove a knife into his liver. He didn't scream. He convulsed, twitched. I held him until he went still. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of guilt. I was replaying the moment in my mind. I realized something. Death was simple. Click. And that's it. The light goes out. I climbed the ranks. Frank taught me everything he knew. By 25, I wasn't just working for the mafia anymore. Cartels, intelligence agents, secret organizations. If someone needed to disappear, I was the one they called. I did it cleanly, without emotion. I wasn't a maniac. I didn't enjoy killing, but I enjoyed being the best. In my hands, people became numbers. I didn't know their names, their wives, their children, their mothers. I only knew the price put on their heads. That's how it was until I turned 30. And then I met her, Anna. I don't know why she chose me. I was a monster, but she didn't look at me like I was one. She saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. She didn't know who I really was. Elite. I told her I had left the business, that I had opened restaurants, clubs. I tried to become someone else. For her. I walked away. I got out. I built a home, started a family. I wanted to believe I had earned peace. But the world does not forgive killers. I sat in my car, parked outside the house. The bedroom light was on. I checked the time. 11:46 p.m. Late. But something was wrong. My instincts were screaming again. I gripped the steering wheel. I thought I had left my past behind. But the past never leaves. I picked up the bag of groceries. A chocolate cake for Emily. A new comic book for Jake. One last gift before my world collapsed. I opened the door, stepped inside, and caught the scent. Wine, vanilla, and something else. Then I heard the sound. A moan. Low, rich, filled with something primal, wild, filthy. I stood in the entryway, feeling time collapse into a single point around me. The room suddenly felt too small, the air thick as concrete, and I felt something crack inside me as that foreign, disgusting sound echoed through the house again. No, it was the TV. It was the radio. It was just my imagination. I clenched my teeth, exhaled, ran a hand over my face, trying to pull myself together. And then I saw it. A coat, hanging on the rack. Expensive, black, made of fine leather, clearly not cheap. The kind of coat worn only by men who see themselves as rulers of the world. A stranger's clothing in my home, in my fortress, in the place I built with my own hands, the place that was supposed to be sacred. Beside it stood a pair of men's shoes. Polished, narrow-toed, with a light trace of street dust, as if their owner had stepped in just minutes ago, never even considering that he might be in danger. My breathing grew slower, deeper, and I felt the cold steel of rage, tempered by years of killing, awaken inside me, wrapping around my bones, seeping through my veins like thick, black hatred. But I still held myself together. I did not believe it. I stepped further into the hallway. With every second, the sound became clearer, and there was no longer any chance to deny the obvious. It was not the television. It was not the damn radio. It was my wife, in my bedroom, with another man. I started up the stairs. Each step landed with a dull thud inside me. It no longer felt like walking. It felt like falling into an abyss. On the first step lay a shirt. On the third, a tie. On the fifth, a black leather belt, expensive with a massive silver buckle. On the 10th, lace panties, crumpled, tossed carelessly, without the slightest hint of shame. I picked them up, a small scrap of fabric that should have been on my wife's body. I gripped it so tightly my fingers turned white. I could have turned back, just walked away, left, forgotten, pretended I had not seen. But something inside me had already broken. I stood in front of the bedroom door. Its light spilled through the crack beneath it, casting a long golden line across the wooden floor. Shadows moved. Voices. Oh God, yes. Anna's whisper, lost between ragged breaths. Just like that, baby. You were so damn good. That voice. That damn voice. I knew it. I recognized it instantly. Mark Reynolds. A gulp. The man who had spent years tried to put me behind bars. The man who had eaten at my table. The man who was fucking my wife. Everything became razor sharp. I heard my breath catch, the blood pounding in my temples, the slow tightening of my fist, the storm breaking inside my mind. I opened the door. They were there, and on the bed, naked, sprawled out, arching beneath his hands, beneath his mouth. Her skin glistened with sweat. Her hair was disheveled, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She did not even realize at first that I was standing in the doorway. But Reynolds did. He froze, turned. Our eyes met. 1 second, 2, 3, and then he smiled. Well, damn. He ran a hand through his tousled hair. You're a little early, I guess. I stared at him. A drop of sweat slid down his neck. His chest was still heaving with excitement. He was not afraid. He did not even try to cover himself. He felt like he owned my house. Vince, Anna whispered, finally realizing what was happening. Her face went pale. I looked at her, the woman I had spent 17 years with, the mother of my children, the traitor. She pulled the sheet over herself, clutching it with trembling fingers. This is not what it looks like. No. My voice was quiet, even almost lazy. She bit her lip. I knew that gesture. She was searching for something to say, something to lie about, something to make up, but there were no words that could change reality. I turned to Reynolds. He was still smiling. Funny, isn't it? His voice dripped with self-satisfaction. How many years have you hated me? I said nothing. Go on, hit me. He spread his arms. Do something. He was not afraid. He knew that if I laid a finger on him, I would go to prison. He knew that if I lost control, he would win. I took a step back, closed the door behind me, turned around, walked downstairs. Tonight, he won. But tomorrow, Tomorrow, I would come for him. I descended the stairs, feeling the world around me slowly collapse. My legs felt heavy, as if filled with lead, but inside my chest, everything buzzed, vibrated, trembled, as if a furious beast was trying to claw its way out. I knew I should have done something. Screamed, stormed back into the bedroom, grabbed Reynolds by the throat, smashed his skull against the headboard. But I did nothing. I just kept walking down, one step after another, descending into my own personal abyss. When I reached the kitchen, I saw that the bag of groceries was still on the table, exactly where I'd left it. I opened it, pulled out the box with the chocolate cake. Emily's favorite cake. I was supposed to take it to her room, watch her face light up with joy, say something kind, something warm. But where was she? Where the hell were my children? I pulled my phone from my pocket, checked my messages. Nothing. Nothing from her. Nothing from Jake. Maybe they were at a friend's house. Maybe at their grandmother's. But I knew something was wrong. I felt it in every cell of my body. Every instinct in me was blaring alarms, like a siren in an abandoned bunker before a nuclear strike. I walked to the window, looked out onto the street. Darkness. The warm yellow glow of the street lights stretched across the asphalt, and in that muted light, I saw a black car parked across the road. Tinted windows. The engine was still running. I felt something click inside me. I raised my phone, switched to the front camera, and lifted it as if adjusting my hair. The reflection in the rearview mirror showed them. A man in the driver's seat, another in the passenger seat, watching the house. I slowly lowered the phone. I exhaled, turned around, walked to the cabinet in the corner of the kitchen, pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and poured glass. I took it in my hand, watching the amber liquid swirl against the sides of the glass. I knew I was being watched. That was not the question. The question was how deep they had already infiltrated my life. I emptied the glass in one gulp. Then I looked at my phone again. That damn sixth sense would not stop screaming in my head. I shoved the phone in my pocket and stepped outside. The black car was still there, across the road. They had not left. They were waiting. I crossed the street. A light breeze tugged at my shirt, but inside me, a storm was raging. I walked up to the driver's side and knocked on the window with my knuckles. I stood before the car, feeling something cold, dense, and viscous boil inside me. Something like oil. Not rage, not fury, but pure, concentrated calculation. Back when I worked for the kind of people who were never supposed to exist, I learned one important thing. Rage blinds you. It makes you slow, loud, careless. It makes you make mistakes, leave traces that should never be left behind. It keeps you from seeing the bigger picture. I always removed emotions. But now this was different. Now this was personal. The driver's side window lowered slowly by a couple of inches, just enough for me to see his eyes. Black, empty, without a trace of fear or hesitation. The eyes of a professional. The eyes of a man who had seen death and accepted it as a simple fact of life. He knew who I was. He knew that I knew who he was. He smiled, almost lazily, as if he did not consider me a threat. Carter, his voice was low, calm, slightly hoarse, the voice of a man who either smoked too much or had spent a lifetime shouting. Do you still think you're the one asking the questions? I did not answer. I just stared. He stared back. Two killers. Two predators. I could feel his partner in the passenger seat slowly reaching for his weapon. I knew I had exactly 3 seconds. 1. I lunged forward, grabbed the driver by the collar, yanked him toward me, and smashed his face against the metal frame of the door with all my strength. 2. His partner pulled out a gun. I ducked under the shot, caught his wrist, drove my elbow into his joint, breaking his movement, then yanked him by the hair and slammed my forehead into his nose, turning his face into a bloody mess. 3. The driver, still dazed from the first hit, reached for his holster. I ripped the gun from his partner's hand and, without aiming, fired the first shot straight into his thigh. The explosion shattered the night. The car jolted from the force of the bullet, blood spilling onto the black leather seats. The driver screamed, "Ah, mother!" I spun around and kicked him in the chest, knocking him out of the car, sending him crashing onto the asphalt, choking on his own screams. The partner was still alive, groaning, trying to clutch at his broken arm. I crouched beside him, grabbed him by the hair, and pulled him close so he was looking directly into my eyes. "Who sent you?" His breathing was heavy, ragged, blood pouring from his shattered nose, dripping down his lips, but there was no fear in his eyes. "You are finished, Carter," he hissed through the blood. I pressed down on his broken arm. He howled in pain. "Who sent you?" He smiled, grinned, even through the pain. "You are already dead, Carter." I did not let him finish. With a swift motion, I shoved the gun into his mouth and pulled the trigger. His brains splattered across the seat. His body convulsed, then went still. The driver was still gasping for breath, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. I turned to him. "Do you have something to say to me?" He trembled. "P, please." I stood up silently, turned around, and walked away. Let him deal with his partner's corpse himself. Let him deliver the message to those who had sent him. I was coming back. I got into my car, wiped the blood off my hands, started the engine. The world around me slowed. My pulse was steady. My breathing was steady. My children were in danger. The hunters had come for me, but they did not know that I was the one who hunted. I drove through the night streets of Los Angeles, and inside me, one single question echoed like a drum. Where was Emily? Where was Jake? I knew that if I did not find them right now, they would disappear. They would be taken, hidden away, and then I would have only one option left, to kill everyone who knew anything. I pulled out my phone and dialed Emily's number. 1 ring. 2. 3. "Dad." Her voice was trembling, barely a whisper. "Where are you?" Silence. "They are close." I exhaled, slowly, careful not to let my voice reveal the storm exploding inside me. "Are you with Jake?" "Yes." "Do you see anyone?" "No." But she hesitated. "I know they are here." I closed my eyes, tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Listen to me carefully." "Uh-huh." "You take your brother. Go through the back exit. Stay in the shadows. Do not talk to anyone. Do not look back. Head to the old warehouse on Wilshire Street. Do you remember it?" "Yes. I will be there in 5 minutes." I ended the call, bit my lip. I had to make it in time. If they got to my children before I did, no, that would not happen. I would destroy anyone who dared to lay a finger on them. I pressed down on the gas. I sat behind the wheel, my fingers gripping it with a dead man's hold, my knuckles bleached white from tension. My breathing grew deeper, quieter, transforming into a steady, controlled stream of air, precise as if it were the only thing keeping my balance intact. I knew that if I let myself, even for a second, give in to the thing inside me that was already tearing down every barrier, the predator I had spent years trying to cage would come loose. And then there would be no negotiations, no mercy, no boundaries, only pure, ice-cold, and absolute vengeance that nothing but death itself could stop. And perhaps not even that. The city blurred past in streaks of streetlights, in long shadows cast by alleyways, in the occasional figures of pedestrians who had no idea that their peaceful, uneventful night was about to be woven into a story that would leave behind a trail of blood, pain, and fear. But I did not care, because in that moment, only one thing mattered. Them. My children. My blood. The one weakness they had found. The one thing they dared to use against me, believing that if they touched what mattered most, if they hurt the ones I had abandoned my past life for, if they took from me the last thing that made me human, they could corner me, control me, make me weak. But they did not understand. There is nothing more dangerous than a beast with nothing left to lose. I turned into a narrow alley a few blocks from the warehouse on Wilshire Street, killed the engine, and sat in the car for a moment, listening to the city echo around me. The distant wail of sirens, drunken laughter, footsteps far away, the hum of passing cars. All of it faded into meaningless background noise, because the only thing that mattered was inside that warehouse. I stepped out of the car, shut the door silently, and moved forward. And in that moment, everything inside me sharpened to its limit. My vision became clearer. My hearing picked up even the smallest shifts in the air. My muscles filled with a controlled, heavy tension, ready to unleash in an instant if the situation demanded it. And I realized, despite all these years, despite leaving my old life behind, I had not forgotten how to kill. A move along the wall, silent, every step calculated, precise, flawless. Because the price of a mistake tonight was too high. Somewhere in the darkness, they could already be waiting, watching, preparing for the strike. And I knew that if I made even one wrong move, if I let them take the first shot, I would lose not just the advantage, but everything I'd come here for. I stopped, held my breath, listened, and then I heard them. Heavy footsteps, shadows moving in the depths of the alley. Two figures. They were waiting. I knew what they would do first. The first would strike immediately. And I was right. A black shadow lunged at me. Fast, confident, no wasted movement. A professional, experienced, trained. A knife gleamed in the dim glow of a distant streetlight. I did not wait. I did not let him get close enough to strike, because I knew that if I did, he would do to me what I had done to hundreds before him. I sidestepped, caught his wrist, twisted it, and drove his own blade into his throat. And at that exact moment, I heard the gunshot. The second shadow had drawn a pistol. I threw myself sideways, rolled behind a crate, the bullet slicing through the air where my head had been a second ago. And for a brief moment, everything became crystal clear again. They had not just come to kill me. They had come to show me that I had no chance. But they were wrong, because the odds were not in their favor. The odds were mine. I waited, listened. A gunshot, a step, another step. I knew this rhythm. They had been trained for this. They thought they could intimidate me. But I knew this game better than they did. When the second man got closer, I pulled the trigger. The bullet tore into his thigh. He screamed. I lunged at him, knocked the gun from his grip, grabbed him by the hair, and slammed his face against the filthy floor. Who sent you? He choked, coughing up blood. You're already dead, Carter. I pressed down on his wound. Last chance. Reynolds. I froze. Mark Reynolds. A gulp. My wife's lover. The bastard who thought he could take my children from me. I felt the corners of my lips slowly curl upward. So, you're just a pawn. His breath quickened. He realized something had gone wrong. Wait, too late. I shoved the barrel of the gun into his mouth and pulled the trigger. His body convulsed, drowned in blood, then stilled. I stood up, looked at the two dead bodies, and felt something old stir inside me. Something forgotten. Something that could no longer be stopped. I stood among the corpses, inhaling the thick scent of fresh blood as it seeped into the concrete, clung to my skin, settled in my lungs. And in that moment, as the world around me fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the distant wail of sirens, I realized time was slipping away. I could not afford to hesitate. My children were still out there, in the dark, in danger. And if I did not reach them first, they would vanish like sand slipping through my fingers. And then I would have only one thing left to do, bury them along with the last remnants of my humanity. I pulled out my phone, quickly unlocked the screen, scrolled to the last call, Emily's number, and pressed it. Holding it to my ear, I felt the tension rising, my heartbeat pounding against my ribs. Because I did not know if she would pick up. 1 ring. 2. 3. Dad. I closed my eyes. She was alive. Emily, where are you? We are hiding, but Dad, they are here. They are walking around. We hear their footsteps. They are looking for us. I clenched my jaw, wiped the blood from my face with my free hand, looked down at the bodies of the two dead bastards. I remembered their last words, their rotten smirks, their certainty that they had power, that they could walk into my life and take away everything I loved, everything I had changed for. And I felt the rage rising again. Pure, unchecked, flooded me like an icy tide. Emily, listen to me carefully, sweetheart. I am listening. Where is Jake? He is with me. We are in some abandoned house. The doors are old. We locked them, but I do not know if they will hold if they find us. I exhaled sharply, gritted my teeth. They would not find them, because I would find them first. Can you see anything through the windows? A road? Cars? Streetlights? I could hear her breathing heavily, hear the tremble in her voice. But she held on. My girl. Yes. Yes, I see a fence. It looks like an old warehouse or something. I went still. A warehouse. The damn warehouse on Wilshire Street. They were keeping them there. Sweetheart, listen to me. No matter what happens, you stay close to your brother. You do not let go of his hand. You do not make a sound. You do not move until you hear my voice, until you see me. Do you understand? Yes. Repeat it. Stay close to Jake. Do not make a sound. Do not move until we hear you. Good girl. I pressed the call brake, shoved the phone into my pocket, then looked at the car I had just cleared of passengers. Was it still running? I slid into the driver's seat, inserted the keys, and turned them. The engine growled, a deep, guttural sound, like a wild animal that had just been woken up. I spun the wheel, pressed down on the gas, and the city blurred past once again, transforming into streaks of light, fleeting silhouettes of buildings, and empty streets that became part of my path, leading to one goal. I would save my children, and then I would kill every last person who dared to touch them. The car tore through the night, slicing through the abandoned roads of Los Angeles, leaving behind only the faintest echo of its roaring engine. Inside, however, there was absolute silence. No radio, no checking my phone, no thoughts beyond one. How fast could I get to my children, and how many bodies would I have to drop to take them back? I no longer felt fatigue. I no longer felt the burning ache in my shoulders that had gnawed at my muscles just hours ago. I no longer heard the frantic pounding of my pulse in my ears. Because now I was someone else again. The cleaner, the killer, the predator that left no trace. But this time, I was not planning to hide the bodies. I wanted the whole damn city to know I was back. The warehouse appeared in front of me suddenly. A massive, dark monolith, abandoned, its rusted gates standing motionless, its crumbling brick walls peeling under years of neglect. The shattered windows held the remains of rotten wooden frames, and the fence Emily had mentioned coiled around the perimeter, creating the illusion that no one had been here for a long time. But I knew better. Places like this always smelled of dampness, dust, and rusted metal. But I caught something else in the air, the scent of death. I parked the car around the corner, got out, stepped into the darkness, and checked my gun. I ran my fingers over the spare magazine in my jacket pocket. Took a deep breath. Somewhere inside that building, my children were waiting, and if even one of those bastards hiding in that warehouse had laid a hand on them, I forced the thought away. I simply moved forward. The doors were locked. Of course they were. I circled the building, silent, peering through broken windows, scanning for movement. For men. They sat in the center of the warehouse, one smoking, another idly scrolling through his phone, a third resting a rifle across his lap. Profesionals. But not at my level. They were mercenaries, not killers. And I was death itself. I moved to the back of the building, found the rear entrance, and listened. Silence. Slowly, carefully, I pulled the handle. Unlocked. I stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy with damp rot, the stench of decayed wood, and something else, something metallic, warm. Something I knew all too well. Blood. There was blood somewhere in this place. I crouched, moved soundlessly along the wall, staying in the shadows until I was close enough to hear them talking. He will be here soon. A man's voice said, slow, almost lazy, as if he was not even slightly tense. You do understand who he is, right? Look, Reynolds said to wait. He said that if Carter shows up, we just shoot him. I froze. Reynolds. That bastard thought he was in control. He thought he could take my family. Wrong. I slowly pulled out my gun, lowered myself into a crouch, and took aim. The first shot was silent. The suppressor did its job. The bullet punched through the skull of the man smoking. His body twitched, fell, and at the same moment, I had already shifted position, pressing myself behind a massive metal crate, waiting for their reaction. What the hell? Two of them jumped up, grabbing their weapons. But they had no idea where I was. I waited. 1 second. 2. When one of them stepped forward, I fired again. The bullet struck his thigh. He screamed. The last man fired wildly in my direction, his bullets sparking against the steel beams shielding me. Amateurs. I pivoted out, took 2 clean shots. Both dropped. Silence returned. I exhaled. Listened. Nothing. I moved forward. Somewhere in the dark. My children were waiting. I moved through stacks of old crates, stepping carefully over the dusty floor, until I heard a quiet sob. I froze. Turned my head. To the right. A heavy old door, locked with a massive, rusted bolt. I stepped closer. Emily. I could hear her breathing. It's me. Dad. I heard Jake sniffle. Dad. I clenched my jaw. I was too late. They were already scared. I'm getting you out. I grabbed the bolt and yanked it upward, but the metal groaned loudly. And at that moment, I heard another sound. Footsteps. Behind me. I turned and found myself staring down the barrel of a shotgun. Hello, Carter. Reynolds. I was not surprised. I was not even angry. I just smirked. You came to me yourself. You thought I would just let you take the kids? I felt the cold inside me spread. No, Reynolds. I thought you were stupid. He sneered. I'm smarter than you think. I watched him. The arrogance in his expression, the relaxed posture, the way he held the gun. And I realized something. He did not know how to kill. He was a cop. He was used to giving orders. But he had never been a killer. I knew he would pull the trigger. And I knew I would stop him before he could. You made a mistake, Reynolds. He narrowed his eyes. What mistake? I stepped forward, and hell broke loose. The shotgun was only 2 feet from my face. I knew that if Reynolds pulled the trigger, my skull would be scattered across the floor before he even finished his dramatic speech. But I also knew one more thing. He was not a killer. He was a cop. He was used to control, to power, to people fearing him. But when it came to real, dirty, inhuman murder, he hesitated. I saw it in his eyes. He was not ready, but I was. I tensed my muscles, held my breath for a fraction of a second, watching his finger on the trigger, waiting. Then when he blinked, when he took a sharp breath, about to say something, I moved. I lunged sideways, knocking the barrel of the shotgun upward just as it fired. A deafening blast tore through the air, echoing through the warehouse. The shot hit the ceiling, sending a rain of crumbling concrete and rusted metal shards down on us. I did not care, because I was already on him. Reynolds cursed, tried to wrestle for control, but I struck his wrist hard, forcing his fingers to release the weapon. Before he could react, I twisted his arm and drove my elbow into his throat. He choked, staggered back, but I did not let him recover. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall, raising my fist and smashing it straight into his jaw. A sickening crack. His head snapped to the side, but he was still standing. GHH, you bastard, he spat, blood trickling from his mouth. I know. I hit him again, this time in the gut. He doubled over, gasping for air. I brought my knee up, slamming it into his face, splitting his lip, maybe breaking a few teeth. He collapsed to his knees, the shotgun slipping from his hands. He tried to say something. I did not let him. I grabbed his hair and drove my fist into his face again. This time, he hit the floor. I stood over him, breathing heavily. He lay there, coughing, wiping his bloody mouth with his sleeve. And he looked up at me. The smugness was gone. Now, I saw exactly what I wanted to see. Fear. You are not going to kill me, he wheezed, trying to force a smile, though his lips were swollen and blood dripped down his chin. You are not a killer anymore, right? I leaned down, bringing my face close to his. You are wrong. I grabbed him by the throat. He choked. You came into my home. I tightened my grip. You touched my children. Reynolds thrashed, clawing at my hands, but I did not let go. You thought you could break me. His face darkened. His eyes bulged. But you son of a bitch, did not understand one thing. I leaned in closer. Now I will not stop. I squeezed harder, feeling the cartilage of his trachea begin to crack, feeling his body convulse in agony, watching as the light in his eyes slowly faded. One more second, one more moment, and he stopped moving. I held him for a few seconds longer, then suddenly let go. His body dropped to the filthy concrete with a dull thud. Silence. I slowly straightened up, wiped a hand across my face, smearing sweat and blood. Then I turned toward the door. Emily. A soft whimper. Jake. Dade. I rushed forward, yanked the bolt free, threw the door open, and nearly stumbled inside. Emily sat in the corner, clutching Jake to her chest. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. But the moment she saw me, she sobbed and ran toward me. Dad! I caught her, held her tight, so tight it felt like I could keep her safe forever. And then I felt Jake press into me too, his small hands trembling, but he held on, just like I did. It is okay. I whispered, closing my eyes. It is over. But I knew that was a lie. because this was just the beginning. I stood up, lifted Jake into my arms, gripped Emily's shoulder firmly, and led them through the warehouse, down dark hallways, past Reynolds' corpse. Now, nothing more than a bag of rotting flesh. We stepped out into the night. Fresh air burned my lungs. I looked at my children. They were alive. They were with me. But I knew this was not the end, because if Reynolds had been just a pawn, that meant someone had placed him on the board. I knew they would come for me soon. But most importantly, they knew that now I was coming for them. I stared into the darkness of the street. Somewhere out there, they were already waiting. I smirked. They had made a mistake. Now they would pay for it. I led my children away from the warehouse, step by step, guiding them toward the car parked around the corner. Emily clutched my hand so tightly her fingers dug into my skin, but I did not say a word. Jake was silent, but his breathing was heavy, ragged, and he could barely move his feet. I could see how fear still gripped him in its claws. I could not comfort them now. I could not afford weakness. I had to think about the next step. I had to figure out where to place them so that no bastard, no filthy piece of scum could ever find them again. I opened the car door, settled them into the back seat, then leaned down and looked into Emily's eyes. Listen to me carefully. She nodded, not even blinking. You're going to Uncle Tom's. She pressed her lips together. Dad, but no. This is not up for discussion. I saw the spark of defiance in her eyes, but she swallowed her words, forcing herself to stay silent. She understood. I was not giving them a choice. I turned to Jake. He looked up at me, his lips trembling. But he did not cry. My son, you're a strong boy, Jake. He nodded, never breaking eye contact. You will protect your sister? Yes, Dad. I cupped the back of his head, pulled him closer, and gently pressed my forehead to his. I will come back for you. I promise. I got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and tore through the city. I needed a place where they could not be found. I needed a place where no one would ask questions. I needed a place where even the devil himself would not step foot without an invitation. Thomas Walker lived outside the city, in an old house on a hill, far from people, surrounded by forest, where you could hear an unfamiliar car approaching from a mile away. Tom and I had worked together in the past. He was just like me, except he left the life earlier. I parked in front of his house, stepped out of the car, walked up to the door, and knocked 3 times. A pause. Footsteps. The click of a safety being disengaged. Jesus Christ, Carter, the door swung open, and there stood Tom, tall, gray-haired, a pistol in his hand. He scanned me, then glanced at the car, at the kids in the back seat, then back at me. You are in deep shit. I nodded. Are they safe here? Tom exhaled, shook his head. I did not ask who is hunting you. You know I keep this place quiet. No one is coming here. I extended my hand. He shook it. Take care of them. And you? I smirked. I need weapons. I left the city with empty hands. I left my children somewhere no one would find them. Now I could start a war. I only needed one thing. Weapons. And I knew exactly where to get them. I pulled up to an unmarked building on the outskirts of the city. No signs. Just a heavy iron door and security cameras at every corner. I knocked 3 times. The lock clicked. The door opened. A deep, raspy voice. Carter? Damn, I thought you were dead. I smirked. I need you, Bob. What do you want? I need an arsenal. Silence. Then laughter. About time. Bob stepped aside, letting me in. Come on, old friend. Let me show you what I have got. Bob shut the door behind me, clicked a few locks into place, and led me forward, ducking under the low ceiling, guiding me deeper into the building where the air was thick, filled with the scent of gunpowder, machine oil, and steel. I knew this place. A long time ago, back when I was not just a nightclub owner, but the man they called the Ghost of Death, I used to come here to prepare for jobs. Every mission, every target, every contract. Now, I was not here for a job. Now, I was here to burn everything to the ground. You knew this day would come, Bob muttered as we stepped into a large room, more like a warehouse, except instead of crates and storage shelves, there were stacks of ammunition, rows of rifles, shotguns, pistols, grenades, knives, body armor, and every tool designed for one thing, taking lives. I ran my fingers over the cold steel of a rifle, feeling something click inside me, feeling muscles, memory, everything I tried so hard to bury start waking up again. I always knew. Bob nodded, opened one of the crates, and pulled out a SIG MCX automatic carbine with a suppressor, handing it to me. Versatile, reliable, perfect for clearing rooms. I took it, checked the chamber, racked it, pulled the magazine, examined it, slid it back in place. Perfect. Bob kept rummaging through the crates. You need anything special? I looked over the rifles. I need a Remington 870. A shotgun? You planning a war? I smirked. I'm not planning. It has already started. I took 2 Glock 19s, a knife for each hand, extra ammunition, smoke and fragmentation grenades, a bulletproof vest, and a compact tactical backpack. Bob watched as I methodically packed everything, then slowly shook his head. Damn, Vince, you were really back. I zipped up the backpack, slung it over my shoulder, and looked at him. No, Bob, I never left. I stepped out of the building, feeling the weight of the weapons on my shoulders, the cold press of the pistols against my ribs, the slight pressure of the rifle sling across my chest. I was ready. Now I needed a plan. I knew Reynolds had only been a pawn. Someone had been behind him. Someone who wanted me dead. Someone who had tried to take my children. I had to find out who. And there was only one place where I could get answers. I got into the car, started the engine, and drove into the heart of the city to where the Black Eagle stood. One of the most infamous underground clubs in Los Angeles, a place where you could buy anything, drugs, weapons, information. It was a den of jackals, but I did not care. I was the lion, returning to rip apart anyone who would dare to step on my tail. I parked a block away, killed the engine, stepped out, and walked toward the entrance. The 2 guards at the door tensed immediately. One reached for the gun hidden beneath his jacket, but the moment he recognized me, his expression shifted. Carter, I nodded. Is Jerry inside? The guard swallowed hard. Yeah, but I stepped forward. Do not get in my way. The door swung open for me. Inside, the club was alive with noise. Dozens of people sat at tables, drinking expensive liquor. Some were making deals. Some were playing cards. Some were discussing who needed to disappear next week. I walked through the room, ignoring the eyes that clung to me from all directions, until I spotted Jerry. Fat, bald, dressed in an expensive suit, he lounged in the VIP section, a glass of whiskey in one hand and a cigar in the other, lazily watching as 2 women danced on his lap. I stepped toward him. He saw me, froze. Oh, fuck. I did not give him time to think. I grabbed him by the collar, yanked him forward, and slammed his face into the table. His glass of whiskey shattered. The music stopped. The entire club went silent. Jerry wheezed. Carter. I leaned down, pressing his head harder against the table. Do you know who is behind this? What the hell are you talking about, man? I pushed harder. Reynolds. My children. Who gave him the order? Jerry choked, his hands slapping against the table in surrender. All right, God damn it. I will tell you. I loosened my grip, but I did not let go. Talk. He gasped for air, blood dripping from his broken nose. It was Blackwell. I frowned. The hell is a Blackwell? Jerry lifted his gaze. James Blackwell. Something clicked in my head. James Blackwell, Deputy District Attorney. A man who had spent years clawing his way toward power. A man who had hated me for a long time. A man who now had to die. I slowly straightened up, staring down at Jerry. Did you lie to me? He shook his head frantically. No, I swear to God. Carter, no. I looked into his eyes, saw the fear there, and smiled. Good. Then you get to stay alive for now. I turned away and walked toward the exit, feeling every gaze locked onto me. As I stepped outside, the night air was cool, but inside me, a fire was raging. I knew who was behind this. Now, there was only one thing left to do. I am coming for you, Blackwell, and no one is going to save you. I drove through the night, feeling the black, thick, ice-cold rage spread inside me. I knew I had to go after Blackwell. I knew he was the one behind all of this. I knew he had given Reynolds the order. I knew he had tried to take my children from me. But I could not go into battle without finishing one last crucial thing. Anna, my wife, my ex-wife, the whore who betrayed me. She thought it was over. She thought I would walk away, lower my head, accept it like a beaten dog. She was wrong. I was not a dog. I was a wolf. And wolves do not forgive. I parked outside our former home, killed the engine, and sat there for a few seconds, staring at the lit windows, remembering how, just a week ago, this had been my sanctuary, my fortress, my world. Now, it was just another house. I opened the glove compartment, pulled out my pistol, and checked the magazine. A dry click, fully loaded. I tucked it into my waistband, stepped out of the car, crossed the yard, and unlocked the door with the same key she never even bothered to change. It was late, silent. I walked deeper into the house, feeling my heartbeat steady, my breathing calm, my steps certain. I had already made my decision. Anna would die tonight. I climbed the stairs, saw the soft glow of light seeping from under the bedroom door. Our bedroom. I pushed the door open. She was lying on the bed, on the same sheets we had once picked out together. In the same room where we had once laughed, where I had once whispered words of love to her, where just days ago she had been moaning under another man. She turned her head, saw me, her eyes widened. Vince. I closed the door behind me. You're not supposed to, you cannot be here. She flinched, tried to sit up, but I pulled out the pistol and aimed it at her. Sit down. She froze. Vince, please sit down. Anna. Her lips trembled, but she obeyed, slowly lowering herself back, clutching the sheet to her chest, as if a pathetic scrap of fabric could protect her from what was already inevitable. You came to kill me. I smirked. What do you think? She swallowed hard, terror flickering across her face. Vince, please. I stepped closer. Why, Anna? She blinked. What? Why did you do it? She shrank back, turned her head away, but I grabbed her chin, forced her to look at me. You were my wife. Her lips quivered. I do not know, I laughed. A hard, cold laugh. You do not know? That is all you have to say? You destroyed our family. You betrayed me. I leaned in closer. You fucked the man who tried to put me in prison. The man who tried to kill me. The man who tried to take our children. She started to shake. I did not know that he... Shut up. She flinched. I straightened up, inhaled deeply. I loved you, Anna. I gave you everything. I left my life behind for you. I shook my head. And you still chose someone else. She let out a strangled sob. It was a mistake, I smirked. Mistakes cost lives, Anna. I raised the pistol. She trembled, curled up, covered her face with her hands. Vince, please. I beg you. I was stupid. I will do anything you want. Just do not kill me. I stared at her, at the woman I had once loved. Now, she was nothing to me, just another traitor who deserved to die. I took aim. She broke into sobs. Please, for the children, I froze. Something deep inside me twitched, but only for a second. You have no right to say their names. I pulled the trigger. The gunshot shattered the silence. Anna jolted, the sheets turning crimson. Her eyes widened. She gasped, clutching her stomach, choking, her gaze filled with desperation as she looked at me. I slowly lowered the pistol. Die slowly, whore. I turned away and walked out of the room, leaving her to bleed out in the same bed where she had betrayed me. As I descended the stairs, I felt nothing. No regret, no relief, no pain, only coldness. I opened the door, stepped into the night, inhaled the crisp air. One enemy was erased from existence. One more remained. Blackwell. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number. Ringing, then an answer. Yes. I'm coming for you, Blackwell. I heard him hold his breath. Carter. I smirked. See you in hell. I hung up, got into my car, and started the engine. Now, nothing was holding me back. Now I could destroy them all, and no one's going to stop me. I drove through the city, feeling the tension coil inside me, tight and controlled, methodical, unhurried. I knew Blackwell had already sounded the alarm. I knew he had realized I was coming for him. He could post guards. He could lock himself inside his mansion. He could surround himself with men willing to die for him. But I knew one thing for certain. It would not save him. Tonight, I would come for him the way death comes. Not loud, not rushed, but inevitable. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Tom. I answered, lifted the phone to my ear. You did it. His voice was low, tense. Yes. How did she die? I smirked. Slowly. Tom was silent. I heard him exhale heavily. Carter, you realize there is no turning back now. I tightened my grip on the wheel. That bridge burned with her. Shit, he breathed. Where are you now? I'm going to Blackwell. Listen, that bastard owns half the cops in this city. He has connections. He has money. He will not fight fair. I do not care. Do you even know how many men he has? Enough to keep me entertained. Carter, I went silent. Take care of the kids. I ended the call. I knew I had one shot. If I approached wrong, if they caught me before I reached Blackwell, they would put a bullet in my head, and no one would even remember I existed. But I was too damn good to make a mistake. Blackwell thought he could sit in his mansion, surrounded by walls, armed guards, cameras, security systems, and feel safe. But I was already inside. I had already seen how he would die, and his death was only a matter of time. I veered off the main road, took the side streets, and picked a spot to leave the car. Not too close to draw suspicion, but not too far to waste time getting there. I killed the engine, opened the glove compartment, checked my pistol. Full magazine. I slung the backpack over my shoulder, stepped out of the car, and vanished into the darkness. Blackwell's mansion sat atop a hill, hidden behind a high stone wall and a gated security system. Perfectly trimmed hedges, elegant street lamps, and cameras tracking the perimeter made it look impenetrable. At first glance, it seemed impossible to break into. At first glance, it seemed like anyone who tried would be dead before they even touched the fence. But I knew there was no such thing as perfect security. I moved fast, silent, staying in the shadows until I reached a section of the wall that led to a small side yard, hidden from the main security post. I waited for the right moment. When the camera turned away, I took a deep breath, pushed off the ground, and jumped. My fingers caught the ledge. My muscles tensed, and in a second, I was inside. Now, the real game had begun. I landed in the bushes, stayed low, waiting as the guard standing near the side entrance finished lazily kicking at the ground with his boot, yawning as he turned away. A fatal mistake. I moved in. One step, I was behind him. A sharp pull, my arm locked around his throat, cutting off his air. 2 hits, a knee to his kidney, a fist to the back of his head. His body jerked, then went limp. I lowered him to the ground carefully, pulled out my knife, and slit his throat just to be sure. Death had to be absolute. I slipped inside through the side door, creeping down a long corridor that reeked of expensive whiskey, cigars, and leather furniture. All while something primal, something predatory pulsed through me. There were more men ahead. I could hear them, talking, laughing. They were not expecting me. They did not think I was already inside. But that did not matter, because they were already dead. I shifted the knife in my grip, exhaled, and stepped into the living room. First man never even realized what was happening. I drove my knife into his throat and ripped it free, leaving him to choke on his own blood. Second man reached for his gun. I took him down, snapped his elbow, and sank the blade into his heart. Third man tried to run. I shot him in the back. He hit the marble floor face first, his blood spreading across the polished surface. Silence. The scent of death. I reloaded my pistol, stepped forward, and headed for the stairs. Blackwell was upstairs. I could feel it. I could feel his fear. I placed a hand on the banister and lifted my head. Blackwell. Silence. I am coming for you. I started up the stairs slowly, deliberately, step by step, so he would hear me, so he would know these were his final minutes. I reached the hallway. His office door was closed. I stopped in front of it, smiled, then lifted my foot and kicked the door open. The wood shattered off its hinges, slamming into the wall before crashing onto the marble floor, sending up dust and broken splinters. I stood in the doorway, a tall, dark figure against the glow of the corridor, a pistol in one hand, a bloodied knife in the other, staring directly at James Blackwell, who sat curled into his leather chair, pale, breathing hard, his eyes wide with pure, unfiltered terror. He knew this was the end. He knew I would not leave until I dragged him to hell with me. His office was spacious, drowning in the scent of aged whiskey, stale cigars, and old books. The kind of books this bastard probably never even read. Scattered across his desk were papers, a phone, an open bottle of Macallan 25, a crystal glass filled to the brim, and a gun, resting in its case, neatly placed, too far from his hands. I stepped inside, locked the door behind me. A heavy click of the lock sealing his fate. We were alone. "Carter," he rasped, slowly raising his hands as if already surrendering, but I saw the flicker of his gaze toward the gun on his desk. I smirked. "Try it, and you die faster." He swallowed, wiped the sweat from his forehead with a trembling palm. "Listen, let's talk." I took a step forward. "About what?" "About how you tried to kill me. How you ordered my children to be taken. Or how you decided to destroy my life." Blackwell shrank even further into his chair. "You do not understand. It was not just me. It is the system, Carter. A lot of people wanted you gone." I chuckled darkly and raised the pistol. Boom! A sickening blast of flesh and bone. A shattering scream. His knee exploded in a spray of blood and cartilage. The chair toppled over, and he crashed to the floor, clutching his leg as blood gushed out in thick, pulsing waves, staining his expensive Persian rug a deep, vivid red. "Egg!" He screamed, body convulsing, writhing like a fish dragged on a land. "Fuck! Fuck! God!" I stepped forward, knelt beside him, pressed the pistol against his forehead. "Do you hear me, Blackwell?" He twitched, gasping, tears streaking down his pale, sweat-soaked face. His fingers clawed at the wound, but the blood was already soaking through his shirt, pooling beneath him in sticky, steaming rivers. I want to negotiate," I grinned. "I did not come here to negotiate." I grabbed him by the collar, yanked him up, and slammed his face into the floor. Crack! His nose shattered, blood splattering across the tiles, his teeth scraping against the stone, leaving white fragments embedded in the cracks. He screamed, choked, moaned, but I hauled him up and threw him onto his back. His face looked like raw meat, torn and pulped. "You are still alive." I leaned over him, pressing the barrel of my gun against his split lips. "But not for long." Please," he sobbed, his breath wheezing, sucking at the air like a fish out of water. "You did not beg for mercy when you sent Reynolds to my wife." I drove my fist into his stomach. He choked, curled inward. I grabbed him by the hair, yanked his head back, forcing him to look me in the eyes. "You did not beg for mercy when you ordered my son to be beaten." I pulled out my knife. The cold steel glinted in the dim light, reflecting in his wide, panicked eyes. "You did not beg for mercy when my children sat in the dark, trembling, wondering if they would be found." I dragged the blade slowly down his cheek. A thin crimson line followed. Blood dripped. His breath hitched, his throat bobbing as he swallowed convulsively, but he did not dare to move. Listen, I can give you money." I plunged the knife into his shoulder. He screamed, a raw, piercing, animalistic howl as his body jerked in agony. I twisted the blade. "I do not need your money, you son of a bitch." I ripped the knife free. Blood poured down his chest in thick, glistening streams. He gasped, his hands clawing at the wound, but this was only the beginning. I raised the pistol, aimed at his remaining good knee. "Please, no." I pulled the trigger. Boom. Bone shattered. His shriek echoed through the entire mansion. Now he lay before me, completely destroyed, his legs nothing but mangled ruin, his body trembling in shocked agony. He wheezed, reaching for me, his blood bubbling in his throat. Please. I looked down at him. "You were dead the moment you touched my family." I raised the pistol, aimed at his forehead. "Say hello to Reynolds." Boom. His skull exploded, splitting open like a rotting watermelon. Blood, bone, brain matter, splattered across the walls. The floor. My boot. Silence. I exhaled, slowly lowered the pistol. I had done it. It was over. I sank into Blackwell's chair, grabbed his whiskey bottle, and took a deep swig, feeling the burning liquid scorch my throat. For the first time in days, I felt calm. I had erased everyone who had dared to stand against me. I had wiped them off the face of the earth. I sat there, feeling the tension slowly drain from my body, the roar of rage in my head fading, my fingers, which had gripped the gun so tightly they had turned white, finally beginning to relax. I stared at his corpse, at the mangled head, at the blood soaking the carpet and walls. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, no relief. This was supposed to be my triumph. This was supposed to be the moment where I could tell myself, "You did it. They're all dead. Now you are free. But the truth was, I was not free. I was empty. I rose slowly, casting one last look at the ruined office. I stepped over Blackwell's destroyed body and walked into the hallway. The house was silent. Everyone guarding it was dead. I moved through the corridors, hearing only my own footsteps, and for the first time in a long time, a thought crept into my mind. What now? I had destroyed my enemies. I had done everything I'd set out to do. And what was next? Go back to the city? Rebuild my business? Live in a world where I would always be looking over my shoulder? Or keep going? Keep finding new enemies, new traitors, keep killing until I ended up in a pool of my own blood, my head blown apart, just another corpse on the cold pavement? No, I already knew the answer. This city was dead to me. I no longer belonged to it. I no longer belonged to this life. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. I had spent too many years chasing vengeance. I had spilled too much blood to prove something to men who were already dead. Now, none of it mattered. Now, only one thing mattered. My children. Tom was waiting at his property outside the city, sitting on his porch with a shotgun in his hands. But when I stepped out of the car, he did not move, did not speak. He just looked at me, and I knew he understood. He knew it was over. He knew I had come for my kids, and he knew that after tonight, he would never see me again. I walked past him, up the steps, and into the house. Emily and Jake sat on the couch, their eyes full of expectation, fear, and hope. I bent down, wrapping them both in my arms, holding them as tightly as I could. Dad. Emily pressed her face into my chest. Is it over? Is this the end? I looked at her, at Jake, at their tired, frightened faces, faces that had seen too much, endured too much. I nodded. Yes, it is over. And this time it was the truth. 2 weeks later, we were on the other side of the world. New documents, new names, a new life. I was no longer Vincent Carter. My children no longer carry my last name. We had erased ourselves from this world, as if we had never existed. And maybe that was the way it was supposed to be. I had killed everyone who needed to die. I had avenged everything that needed avenging. But I knew, if I had stayed, if I had continued to live the way I had lived, one day my son would grow up to be just like me. And I did not want that. I wanted him to never know what it meant to live with blood on his hands. I wanted my daughter to never again be afraid that someone would come into her life and take everything from her. I wanted them to have a future. And for that, I had to disappear. The sunset bathed the sky in gold. I sat on the beach, watching the ocean, its endless waves rolling toward the horizon. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. Emily and Jake laughed nearby, chasing each other across the sand, forgetting everything they had been through. They smiled. They were happy. And in that moment, I realized it had all been worth it. I closed my eyes. The world no longer needed a killer named Vincent Carter. And I no longer needed a world where he existed. Now I was just a man, just a father, just alive.